Indie housing market. Get the latest insights right here.
Welcome back to Indie Housing Market. I'm Kyle Morris with Morris Property Group and FC Tucker.
Hi, I'm Shelly Walters with the Shelly Walters Realtor Group and FC Tucker too.
Man, we've been a hot wreck before this. We've been
Literally
sitting here spitballing, just talking real estate and
things that are just driving us crazy, right?
Gosh. Yeah. I think it's the
Anybody
weather.
else
Dude.
having things just drive you crazy in real estate? It's
My gosh.
everything, right?
Yeah.
I think it's the people too. I've just noticed more people are more cranky lately. I mean, it's just been.
But I don't think that's industry related. I think that's society.
It is. It is so society.
I just think everybody is just so wound up about everything. Like, there's so many different things that you could get wound up about right now. Like, it could be the economy. It could be politics. It could be outside of our borders. It could be inside of our borders. It could be like, I don't know. Like, you don't care about everything, but the one thing you care about, there's probably some kind of something going on with it. And I just think people are fatigued, stressed, whatever it may be.
Well, I've been talking to a lot of agents, and it seems to be very common. Like, a lot of the people I'm talking to, because I just kind of bring it up, and how are you doing? And whoa, you just ask that question to somebody around you right now.
So here's the thing, though. Like, you have a stat that actually kind of backs that up to a certain extent, and we had heard about it. I think it was one of my buddies that owns a brokerage said that they were up 30% for pending transactions falling apart.
Yes, and I do have those stats.
Actually have
I
a
looked them
stat.
up.
So, like, that's pretty
It's
accurate
happening.
across the board. There was one county that was, like, even with last year,
Yeah,
right? It was
yeah.
Delaware, I think.
Yeah, well,
or
we
Delaware
have-
or Boone, but...
So this is the falling out because people are just done. Nobody's trying to work together anymore. Is that what's going on? I mean,
Yeah,
it's just
well, here's the thing. So I was actually texting with another agent about that this morning on a different deal, and it's this, and I understand all of it, but I've got this weird mixture of buyers who have leverage and entitled sellers. And to be fair, it is buyers doing back to sellers what sellers did to buyers a couple of years ago.
even though they weren't there, but they just heard about it.
Well, and here's the worst part about it is a lot of these buyers or a lot of these sellers were the buyers who got screwed too, like 5 years ago. Like,
Yeah.
that's really, and
Yeah.
so they're just like eating, a shit sandwich on both ends of this deal.
But
and,
I've
I
had
get
some
it.
sellers that are. I guess I've had it on both sides. The problem is what you're talking about, how you listed the house. If I do not see the word "as is" on that listing, I'm sorry.
You gotta stop hitting the table, man. Even you're all like, I gotta hit stuff, dude. I gotta move away from you.
I've gone through the process with my inspection with my buyer and come back and ask for things that should be a normal request. They're not major, but just not minor either. And the seller comes back and goes, nope, we're not fixing anything. And I'm like, wait a minute, that was not a listed as is. And that conversation comes up, well, I didn't have to. We just don't want to fix those things. But I've also had sellers who've come back and go, no, I've decided I don't want to fix anything. It's just I don't know.
That's not an easy situation to be in with
just
a
because
diminished amount of buyers.
Yeah, they
because
are
there's
too.
a lot of, like, that's a very big conversation I have with a seller is like, like, if we make these decisions, like, I'll support you in whatever you do, but like in 30 days, I don't want to hear about like, why are we still on the market when like we didn't dance with somebody we had and try to figure out a solution to it. Like, I need us to know we're making this decision, and so in 30 days from now, we remember that we made this decision and why, and we were okay with it.
That's what texts are for.
Yeah, I mean, it's just tough, and I get it.
I'm
I really
there right
do.
now, the offers and everything, but I'm going to show you the stats we're talking about, the pending fallout. So I went in and so for Eagle Township in Boone County, this is compared to the same week last year, 2024, we are up 33% for pending fallouts, which means they got a mutual release. 33% more than last year. Clay Township in Hamilton County up 14% since last year. And Noblesville's up 33%. And then we have Delaware, which is weird. This is Fishers. It says 0. So this is straight from Meebor, as I call it, because Siri can't understand me when I say my board.
Fishers.
Hamilton County.
Oh, Delaware Township.
Yes, please.
Township.
Yes.
I thought you said county.
So,
I was like, whoa.
33% Eagle Township, 14% Clay Township, 33% Noblesville. So buyers and sellers, just because you have a contract doesn't mean it's going to not fall through. And that's one thing I think people need to understand. It doesn't just skate through. And that's another thing people need to understand as real estate agents are here to try to make that happen, go through to the end. But there's a lot of attitude out there right now. And I'm just...
Well, I mean, I'll represent
stressful.
my side. Like, all I can do is advise, and then I put the foot forward that my client tells me to put forward, and so, and then sometimes I catch grief when I'm just the messenger, and that's okay. That's what I get paid to do. But it is interesting that's happening. One of the things I've been dealing with a lot here lately, and mine have gotten through to closing. It's not a big deal, but I don't know what's more surprising to me, sellers or buyers surprised that there's something wrong with a house that is 50, 70, 80, 100 years old, and it's under $600,000, right? I mean, I feel like, and this is arbitrary, but like I think $600,000 at that price point, somebody's kind of done to the nines, or it's in an area where it's been done to the nines, right? To like everything's been done and remediated and remodeled or blah, blah, blah. Other than that, like, if you're a seller, it's going to have issues. If you're a buyer and you want to buy those cute houses like that, like, they have issues. Like, that's just the reality.
Well, even if you're looking at a house under $250.
And then they want it perfect. I'm like, wait a second. This is
right. No, and the houses under $250 are same kind of situation, that usually those have a little bit more work needed to them, but then you're in a population that potentially they don't have the money to do that, but the sellers don't either.
Correct. Mm-hmm.
So,
Agreed.
I just, in regards to the process of doing an inspection, it just seems like it's getting really a lot more testy than it needs to be or has been in the past. Just need to work together. But you had said one other thing that really reminds me too, that doesn't seem to be a standard knowledge base for sellers. And I have to remember this, and I think we all need to remember this as real estate agents when you're working with your sellers, when you present an offer. When they tell you they want a counter, they don't understand the fact that the buyer can say, forget it. Like, correct. I had that conversation again, and I've been doing this for 17 years, and it's something that just goes out my brain when I'm doing it with my sellers. But you have to remember, they don't know, they don't do this every day. But if your seller wants to counter, know that they possibly could lose that deal over $1,000 or whatever that was that they wanted to. So really counsel your sellers that if they're going to counter, that they're seriously interested in losing the deal over maybe whatever they just countered over, because that is something that just came back to me, and I just, for some reason, he brought that up, and I went, oh yeah, he doesn't realize that he could lose this deal if he counters. And when I finally,
they can walk,
and it's a surprise. It's like, well, why would we just go back to what they offered? And because now they're either upset, mad at you,
but I
or
do think
over it,
I do think there is a way, if you're a good agent, if you counter and they walk, to bring it back to the table.
You can.
But
you can't too sometimes. I mean, it just depends on what the buyer thinks. And here's the other thing too, is back in the day, back when we had inventory.
To me, that's dependent on agents, though.
Everything is, obviously.
Yeah. Agents need to be able to communicate those kinds of things to
I just want to say,
sellers.
For a buyer who has given you an offer and they've given you 24 hours to respond, and you come back and you counter, the first counter, and they're not going to walk, right? Or we have the words highest and best or final and best that you can put on there if you're going to walk with anything coming back at you. But when we do that and you now counter as a seller, I want to say we are currently in a market right now where their new house could have hit the market and they're going to move on. And that has not been a market we've had for the past 3 or 4 years. And that used to be something that we would always talk about back in 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, whatever year it was, when there was massive inventory to pick from. A buyer would not be uncommon that they would go, oh, look at 123 Main Street just hit the market. Forget that. Rescind that offer, or they countered, I'm out. I like this house better.
I mean, that happened to us last weekend or the weekend before, where we're debating the counter. Our client wanted to take some time to think about, rightfully so. You know what I mean? We did know that they were still looking at other houses, countered back, and they're just like, no, we're good. We found a different one.
Yep.
You know,
and that's not something that's been a problem or an issue, and it could be today.
But we did have the conversation like this could happen. They are looking at other houses and blah blah blah, and so but that did impact our counter, right? Because we're like, well, if they're not fully bought in, then like we're not going to budge as much, and like we handled it the right way or whatever, but we also knew like this is the decision we're making, and this is why, right. And like. You know, if they do really want the house, because here's the other problem.
You're not going to sell it for what you don't want to sell it for. I understand that, right?
Mm-hmm. And then, I want somebody who's committed to the property. You know, I don't want somebody who's going to get under contract and then find a way out of it as well, which goes back to the other point. And I don't know why these are falling apart. Is it because of another house comes on the market? Is it because it fell apart at inspection? Is it because it fell apart because of financing? Is it? There's so many different reasons it could fall apart, right? So I don't want to say.
But 33%, that's 1 out of 3.
But so
that's a lot.
This goes back to like what we were talking about before we even got on here, right? And like there's just some weird stuff going on, and I don't really have an answer for it other than just do better, know the rules. We were talking about pendings. When does a house go pending, right? Yeah. And, we're in multiple listing services. We're in MyBor, we're in Racy, we cover a big area. And, we have people saying, oh, we're not pending it until inspection. And we're like, no, that's not a thing. Like
maybe the sign. But not the actual online information that we get as agents.
Oh, the sign thing's another thing we want to talk about. But like just for like brass tacks, like you have to MyBor, so for anything that's in Indy or the donut counties and the MyBor supported area, it's 2 business days
to show it pending.
It has
not when you want to, not when you get to it.
I'm super trying not to, I love to swear, and I'm trying to not use certain words that I really like to use because I'm on this podcast right now. But it has nothing to do with earnest money.
Correct.
Nothing to do. Whether
or
you bring
application
earnest
for mortgage
money
or anything.
Any of that. That is a failure to comply with the contract. That has nothing to do with the status within MyBor and how a house is put into the system. That is totally separate.
And I
from
think
the
2 days
within
is too
a
long.
Contract.
2 days is too long for me, but it is 2 days. And how many
business
times?
Days, not just
days.
I know. Business days.
I know. But that puts us all in a position of, an agent who wants to show a house, who's going to go look at it, and there's nothing like calling an agent and saying, hey, we just saw your house and we think we really like it. We're probably going to put an offer. Oh, I'm sorry. We're just waiting to pend it. What?
Okay, what? So that's a whole
We're waiting to pend it because why? Because you have a signed contract that's already accepted. Why are we waiting to pend it? Period.
And so we had this conversation because like I deal with a lot of things and I don't pend a property, right? I submit it to pend, and if it's on a Friday night, it will happen Monday morning, right? Because the office staff will do it. Now, I know I can do it, and we were talking about that. Like, I probably should just go in and do it. What I do is I shut down all showings. I do have the capacity to lock the ability to be shown, and I do put a pending sign on the sign. Now, should I go in the system and pend it? I should. This is me just being an idiot. I'm always afraid I'm going to click the wrong button and mess it up.
Nothing like activating a listing you didn't mean to.
And it's super easy. It's no different than putting an open house in the system, right?
Yeah.
Like when we're like putting in everything and it's like save as draft or submit or
pre-market.
No,
I know you don't want to hit the wrong button.
I don't want to hit the wrong button.
Pending is you're doing though what you say you're doing is you're at least stopping agents and buyers.
You can't go look at it. Yeah.
Yeah.
You can't go
from having the issue of. People go through a lot of process to show a house, see a house.
You schedule your whole day around it.
Yeah. And you put kids, to daycare, whatever you do. But for an agent to tell me, I'm sorry, I'm just waiting to pend it. Why? And what's the terms you're waiting on? And you talked about, because we don't have earnest money yet. That has nothing to do with it.
That's nothing to do with it. Literally nothing. Look it up.
Well, it doesn't matter. It's just part of the purchase agreement. Your purchase agreement states you'll have it to us within a certain amount of time.
Like our what we have to comply with as members of my
Well, that's
board
what
or
you and I
racing.
hear all the time, waiting for earnest money. And earnest money has nothing to do with when you have to pend it. Those are two totally different things.
Has nothing to do with it.
So,
But then it gets into like, do I report that, right? Because I don't want to be the ass that. Here's the thing: like, I feel
don't
like I'm
report
being a
lot
jerk
major.
if I do it.
Yeah.
When it's just kind of like, it doesn't matter. We're under contract, and I don't want to be that guy to like turn you in because like I've got to serve my client and I got to get this deal done. Like it's just this weirdness.
what do you think about this? Is probably opening a huge can of worms.
Oh, let's do it. I love it.
What do you think
do it.
about having an open house when it's already under contract?
Not a fan. Not a fan. I do know that it happens.
Yeah, that happens.
For me, it is.
We're looking for backups. Is the response everybody says?
Which is
can.
fair. Which is fair. I understand that, and I can't argue with it. I can understand that line of thinking. To me, I am trying to sell something that has already been sold, and it feels like false advertising. And I do understand, like, we're trying to get backup offers. That's fair. That's a super, super fair situation. I also think it is a super convenient way to circumnavigate I don't even know if that's the right word for that. But anyways, to like go around the whole idea that open houses is how agents get clients.
Correct. And I think
Like, let's just be honest there. That's why you're doing it. Because if you're doing it because like, like you want people to come in and, an agent wants to get clients.
Usually it happens, I see mostly that because it was already advertised. Well, we already told everybody we would. Still, the situation is you don't have a house to sell anymore. The one that you're standing in.
So that is why. So then we get into the sign thing. Okay. So I was
That's a whole.
big.
There's no rules.
There's no rules on this.
on signs.
So you can't have more than 2 sign writers and
that
stuff
kind.
like that. But anyways, and I have this whole thing where I think they should be lined up. It tickles my OCD.
Oh, I know you can't stand that.
I can't stand that. But anyways, that's
It's
me. That's
eye-catching.
between me and my therapist.
That's
but,
That's just an eye-catching way of putting your sign out there. He's talking about putting the writer off center.
Right. So here's the thing. So it's like it grabs your attention, which is the intent. But to me, it also looks sloppy, which looks unprofessional.
You just slapped it up there.
So I'm like, it works, but does it work the way you want it to work? Blah, blah, blah. Anyway, so signs, though. I was like, I'm not superstitious, but I don't want to do something and find out that I needed to be superstitious. Does that make sense? And like, excuse me, I always was afraid to put a sold or a pending sign out because for 2 reasons, and I'll be fully transparent here. First of all, like bad juju, right? Like I don't want to fall apart. And then like the other thing is like, if somebody is interested in the house, I will not do the open house thing. But I do want somebody to call us and like, no, but maybe I can help you find another house, right? Like, so
So that's a marketing thing.
That's me being fully transparent as an agent, right? It's that like it is still good marketing, and somebody can call and be like,
But
no, we can still help
what
you,
is better? No sign on top of it for 2 weeks, or sold on top of it?
That depends on the market. Fair. So when
Yeah.
everything was selling really quick,
Yeah, it didn't matter. That's normal.
yeah, but-
you couldn't even get a sign on top and fast.
so
enough.
I started putting pendings out maybe 3-4 years ago, and it was because like I had a house, it was a ranch in like Deer Crossing or whatever, like one of the deers that's over there by Deer Creek, well, Verizon, Ruoff, whatever it is these days, the music venue in Noblesville is what I'll call it. And we pinned it, and like I pinned it on Friday, so it was in the like I listed on Thursday and we pinned it Friday, but the other systems, Zillow, Redfin, they didn't pick up because there can be like a 2-day turnaround for their stuff.
Yeah.
So even though if you looked in MyBor or the BLC, there was no open house, but Zillow and Redfin and Homes and all these other ones, they still said there's an open house. And I got lit up, dude, by like 6 people sitting outside of this stupid house that had
lock your doors, Mr. and Mrs. Seller.
The open house signs weren't up anymore.
Right.
Nothing. And then like somebody said something to me, and he was upset, and I understood. And like I felt very, very bad. And he said, well, why didn't you put a pending sign out? And I was like, I generally don't, because it feels like bad luck, but with you on the phone right now, this makes sense to me. And I've put a pending sign out ever since, as soon as it pins, for that very reason, because I don't want to get yelled at by people who took time out of their Sundays to go look at a house.
Only if you have that open house thing, though. But if you don't have an open house scheduled or anything like that,
Totally different.
When is your pending part. My pending is after inspections. I'm sorry. I do the pending right away because I honestly.
But you do sold, isn't that what you said?
Only after appraisal.
That's great, but it ain't sold, yo.
Yeah, so I got that phone call. Anyway, we'll talk about that later. No,
I would talk about it now, man.
No, yeah, so the pending I put on.
It goes back to it feels like bad juju, man.
Well, yeah, that's why I only do pending because I want it to be pending. I want to show that because I don't want people calling. I mean, you never. Yeah, like you said though, it's the phone calls you get from people out in the public that just I don't want to deal with. So yeah, it's pending. But sold is scary. It is not sold. And in my word, my brain, the word sold means that we are going to close. Like we're past all the contingencies.
To me, sold means
Closed.
Ownership has been transferred.
Yeah. So
that's how it works at
I know.
Kroger and
right.
we're Marshalls or what's
now
that?
You're
Kohl's.
going to bother me every time I put a sold sign up.
I literally could care less.
I
what
know.
you do,
No, I mean, you're going to bother my brain for doing that. My sold sign goes up after appraisal because that tells me now we are past all contingencies, minor or minus a death or a loss of job. We are good. So I put the sold sign up, and that sometimes doesn't stay up very long. But I will not do that until after all contingencies because I do feel that's
so when you go to Kroger, when it goes in the shopping cart, is it pending? And then when you're in line, is it sold?
That's about the right way if you want to look at it that way. But you know what? Now you're making me understand my phone call. So I'm doing the walkthrough, and the agent asked me if he could put his sold sign up and leave it up for a couple of weeks while, it's already done. And I'm like, but it's been sold. You didn't have your sold sign up yet? He goes, it's not sold yet. And I'm like, okay, I guess not. But I put my sold signs up before it's sold.
I think it's personal preference. So for me, it's two things. It is my client's personal preference first, and if they don't care, then it becomes my personal preference on it. And I just...
Have you ever had a client call you, though, and say, why isn't there a sold sign in my front yard?
Very rare.
I have.
Okay, so yes on the sold, and I explain them why. I was like,
Yeah.
it's not sold.
Yeah.
Like in per the letter of the law, it is not sold.
So why do we have sold sign writers?
I don't know.
Unless you're going to keep it up after it's already been sold.
Right, and then
I know
that
agents
becomes
that do
the
that.
personal
They'll put it
preference
up-
of the new owner, not...
Especially. So I know a specific agent who puts his sign in the yard with a sold sign on it when he had the buyer. What do you think about that?
No.
Isn't that weird? I think that's odd.
I don't even know if that is addressed anywhere, but to me that is feels unprofessional. And I'm not accusing anybody because this is the first time I've ever heard of something like this. It feels unprofessional.
It was
first of
weird
all.
when I first saw it because that was my listing, and I come back and I see a sold sign in the front yard with that person's sign in the yard of the house I sold my listing. But obviously, the buyer can let him do whatever he wants. But that is a standard practice.
But to me, it goes,
person.
and you would know the better technical descriptions of this stuff. Because you've served on some of these committees and all of that stuff, right? So
It's not against any code that I've ever found because I asked.
Well, but here's the thing. So there's the golden rule, right? And then which like real estate agents are supposed to abide by, right? But then there's this also like I'm not allowed to reach out to your clients or impact your clients, and that feels like that, right? And I don't remember what that falls under, but like I've had. And I don't really care because I have a really good relationship with any of my clients and blah, blah, blah. And I've seen this. This has probably happened to me like 20 times over the years where the agent on the other side brought something for my client to closing. And like, you can't do that. You can't do that.
That's a standard practice too, and this is the same area. Same area.
You're not allowed to do it. I've seen people.
The keychain, everything with all of their marketing on their stuff to your client. Yes.
I've seen a listing agent leave drinks in a fridge for the new buyer. Not the client. The sellers did not do it.
Correct.
The agent did it. And
With
you
their
cannot
information
do
on.
that stuff.
Okay, I'm
now
gonna
it
ask.
doesn't bug me.
Are you sure? I'm going to ask real quick.
Yeah.
You can't?
That is my understanding of it. Yes.
I don't know about that. That's an interesting thing. I just know it's very frustrating, and I don't like it at all.
How is it not communication, although indirect, to my client?
Well, it's marketing to your client.
Which you cannot do.
Okay, well then there you go. That's it.
My client would have to reach out to them, not them reach out to my client. Fair?
So picture yourself, if you've never had this happen, sitting at the closing table when that happens. How do you look when you go, excuse me, what are you doing?
I don't give a shit. I don't do nothing about it. Mainly because, like...
No, I've had to. I'm like, excuse me, here's all my stuff. Yeah. I'm like, what?
I don't do it. I choose to rise above it. And, like, if anything, usually what I mean, here's the other thing. Like, I can't even say anything to my clients about it afterwards because then I'm being disparaging to that agent.
Yeah, we get deep in the weeds here and all that stuff,
yeah,
right?
But, like, this is, like, simple shit. This is super, super simple stuff, and it all... So it's like, does it fall under the idea of, like, hey, I'm a good person, I'm trying to do a nice thing? Or does it fall under, like, I'm low-key marketing and I know it?
Well,
that's individual. That's a situation by situation, right?
Well, if we really want to get blatant about it, it's like, I'm going to try and steal your client right in front of you.
I don't think that's anybody's
Why are you
motive.
doing it then?
So
I don't know. Why are you handing out all your paraphernalia if you don't want to be in front of them for the next, I don't know.
I don't
know.
I think part of it is like I'm marketing to my client that I'm a good client or a good agent.
Yeah, I'm not afraid of being stolen.
But you're just not allowed. Yeah, I'm not afraid of being. Yeah, it is what it is. But I'm not worried about losing my client over your keychain type stuff. But
no, me neither. It's why.
But this is like just all these weird things that we're talking about, like that people just don't know. And so like we started with, when does something pinned, right? And, like, people don't know that stuff all the way. And then we get into, like, the nuances of sign writers, which are, like, there's no real... It doesn't come down to anything.
Well, now you got me wondering why we have sold sign writers. And there's a bunch of them in the room back there.
Dude, Shelly, this is how my brain works all the time. It's exhausting. Like, you're like, oh.
Well, it's so funny because I just had that phone call literally last week, and I leave the sold sign up, and I'm like, but you could have done it for the past 2 weeks. And he's like, it's not sold yet. And I'm like, okay.
I still see, like, so you guys can't see it. This is horrible for like a podcast thing, just, especially if you're listening to it. Cause I'm like, hey, look at this. Cause like it's audio, right? But like we're sitting here in like in our office and there's like this scrolling thing of pictures of like, just pictures of listings. Right. And like we sit here and like, we're just Shelly and I are just brutal sometimes. And we're like, look at this crap picture, like what are we doing here, and sometimes we want to like tell an agent like, hey, you should switch this, and then that feels arrogant that I'm like telling you what to do or whatever, but like presentation matters. But like you can't put brokerage signs in a photo.
Yeah.
And I see that stuff, and I'm just like, come on, what are we doing?
Okay,
here,
but I want to ask you, I know when that came about.
Am I the only person who went to these classes? I don't know. But Raquel knows. Raquel's in the classes.
It didn't used to be a thing. I don't remember when. I don't know. I just remember when it came about. But there, again, specific people I know made sure that their sign was in the yard, in the picture. But I have to ask you, why it does matter? Because it's all over the listing who you are.
I
don't understand that.
I just think it looks tacky. I don't think it moves
the
meter
it looks
one
weird.
way or the other.
But when I go to have my pictures taken, you've got to sign in the car, right? You're going to take your sign over to the house, put your sign up, and now I've got to make sure now that it's not in any of the pictures, including drones. So I have to wait all the time until it's completely done so I can now put my sign up. And you know how many times I've driven away and forgot to put the darn sign up and had to go back to put the sign up because I'm waiting to make sure it doesn't end up in pictures.
For me,
so I'm over the top about not having it in there, but I don't get it because I can see my name all over those listings as soon as it hits the market.
But oddly enough, and probably contrary to what everybody who knows me personally thinks, I do have systems in place. My photos are enough days in advance. So usually because you can only put the sign out a day in advance, right?
Pre-marketing is a different status.
Pre-marketing is different. I'm not talking about pre-marketing. I'm talking about coming soon.
2 days.
2 days. I thought it was 24 hours now, actually, but it doesn't super matter. For me, like, goodness. I do photos.
We aren't taking the test anytime soon.
Yeah. Well, my schedule is the same on every single house because it doesn't matter, right? So, I do photos, and then the next day is sign and coming soon, and then the next day is listing. So I never run into it because I'm always off on days between photos and coming soon.
Yeah.
Because even
I kind of
then,
do it all at once.
even then, I have to do for the coming soon. I have to put the sign one way so I can have the house in the background. But then that's literally never parallel to the road. So I have to put the sign in, picture, then literally take it back out. And
You
put
do
it
have
so-
systems. All right, so let's look at stats. What did you find this week? Past week.
Okay, so I was saying the market felt slow. It's kind of picked back up, or at least it did for a week. Does that mean it was?
It couldn't have done much to pick back up, though. It was
Well, so here's the thing.
slow.
But here's the weird part about it. Okay, so you and I both talked about this. It felt busier this week.
A little bit.
Okay, the stats don't actually show that.
Yeah. Well, and the stats
But there's
are
more showings.
Yeah.
And the stats don't have showings.
We've got to get a showing stats to
Yeah.
show us what's going on. That would be awesome.
Okay, so for me and Fisher, so that it's kind of weird. So the stats are like, I mean, they're a little bit better. It's very minimal, but it felt super, super different just because of showings. And like I said, we do not have the showing stat on here. That's more like just because
It doesn't exist.
if I don't know, if I just feel like if you're doing a bunch of business, you see it,
Yeah.
because you're on both sides of so many.
If you're showing more or whatever. But as listings, we don't have that availability anymore. I wish they'd figure that out.
I know. Okay, so in Fishers, I had 48 go on the market, anywhere from like 199,000 to 6.1 million. 38 of those are still active. 10 of them pended. However, 30 actually pended. So I picked up a little bit more inventory. The 30 means like only 10 pended within a 7-day period. Okay, that's what I'm talking about. Pended within a week, right? I have
Of the ones that actually went on the market, so
Correct.
they pended quickly.
They pended quickly, right? 10
Yes.
pended quickly. I have 219 on the market, and the average days on market is
You have 219 in Fishers?
I have 219.
Isn't that a lot?
I mean, it's more than 203 last week.
And
It's
before that, yeah.
it's definitely more than 170. Like
You were never in the
month and a half ago.
200s. Crazy.
So my average days on market is 20, and then the median is 8. And then if I look at like active houses on the market, their average days is 48, and the median is 30 or 34, which is last week it was 49 and 34, right? So it like went down a day. So not a lot changed.
Well, it's staying
there.
the same, which is good. It's not going up.
Correct, right? And then, so I also did an interesting one in Fisher. So, like, for those 7 days, like, average days, it was like 20 and 8, right? 20 average days on market and then 8 median. I did all pendings for Fishers. It was the same numbers, which I found very, very interesting. So, and then Noblesville, I had 51 go on the market, anywhere from 180K to 1.4 million. 43 of those are still on the market. 8 of them pended. I had 32 total penned last week. Average days on market is 24, and the median is 10, which is actually worse than last week in Noblesville, ironically. However, that's because a lot of the stuff, those are for the things that pended in the past 7 days. The all-in 32 that pended last week.
It's clearing up old inventory.
Yeah, it is, because if I actually look at active days on market, it's 31 and 10.
Oh, that's going down.
It's gone down significantly.
That's
for
awesome.
Noblesville. Yeah,
That's
so it's
Noblesville.
kind of weird. That's where
Isn't
I was
it
like, I
weird?
feel different, but like the stats don't super back it up.
But that shows such a difference, though, between Noblesville and Fishers, what those two towns are doing. And
How
then
they
I'm
perform
seeing a lot of differences in some of the stats I was going to talk about. So when people talk about that Zestimate, the Zillow Zestimate, we aren't even seeing the same thing happen in towns right next door to each other. So Zestimates are too over the top when people try to use those, because you can't look at what's going on.
Yeah, I mean, this is all the same county.
Yeah, same county, towns next door to each other having two different markets. And this is the same for me, what I'm finding. So in Carmel, we had 57 hit the market last week. That was a lot.
That's a big number.
That was a lot. Oh, so half of them pended. So of all those that hit the market, 24 did pend. A total of 36 pended. So we had an average, 21 more houses stay on the market than actually pended. So we did get good inventory last week. The average days on market of those pended was 18, and the median was 5. So that's showing quick pendings. Currently, there's 175 on the market in Carmel of all price points. The average days on market of those houses sitting right now is 78, and the median is 32. So Those ones that are sitting are getting ready to, sooner or later, we keep saying it's going to catch up and our pendings are going to start to show a lot higher days on market. 160 sold in the past 30 days with an average days of 18 as well. So past 30 days, past 7 days, all sitting around 18, but those actives are at 78. That's a huge difference coming down the pike. Westfield, there's 49 we had hit the market. 13 of those pended, so not very many at all pended out of those 49. And then 39 total pended, 37 average days on market for the ones that did pend, and 12 median. But there's currently 256 houses on the market in Westfield. The average days on market there is 57 and the median 34, which is going down for Westfield a little bit. There's 160 on the market currently active there. 160 sold in the past 30 days. Average days on market 27 and 10. So to me, that's showing that our market is good right now when all of these average days on market are hovering around 30 or less. Zionsville had 21 hit the market. Half of those did pend, and a total of 15 pended with an average days on market of 6 and a median of 5. The average days on market for the past 30 days was 23 and 4. So last week sped up quite fast for Zionsville. There's 87 currently on the market with an average day of 76 and a median of 41. To me, for Zionsville, that's kind of interesting how high those days on market are, the sitting current houses that are not sold yet. So Zionsville has always been low days on market, but soon to be that it'll be soon much higher. I wanted to pull up, this is just all of the MyBoard information you guys can get with a little bit more. The active inventory right now is up 29% in Clay Township over last year. The active inventory in Delaware Township and Hamilton County is up 5%. So this is where I'm saying the different towns side by side, totally different.
Totally different.
And then active inventory in Eagle Township and Boone County is up 28%. And they needed it. They didn't have anything. Active inventory in Noblesville is up 45% over last year. So we're looking at all of the Donut counties, 16 counties in MyBoard, active inventory is up a whole of 27%. So that's everything. But that was a breakdown of everywhere. So you can just see we do have much higher inventory over the past year. 29% Carmel, 45% Noblesville. That's a lot of change.
So inventory is better. Everybody wants better inventory. Buyers have more leverage. Right, it's what people want. I just don't
Has it become a buyer's market? That's what everybody
saying.
wants
it, but what you don't realize, to get to that buyer's market, a lot of time it means that interest rates are high. Like
there's always a trade-off.
There's always something that comes into play with that.
So price changes. I wanted to talk to you real quick because we're talking about people are starting to drop their prices. So in Hamilton County, there was 15% more price drops than last year. And in Eagle Township, over last year, the price changes are up 13%. So we are seeing price changes start to be something that we'll just continue to see as well. So those are just some of the other kind of stats I wanted to throw out just to kind of see where we are. But
interesting. We'll see where it is next week to see if this.
Just week by week.
Stay tuned next week to see if this continues or does not continue. But I can tell you what will happen is that we will have opinions on dumb shit again. So, that's my favorite part about this. The stats are the stats.
And guess what? Stacey Berry is coming next week.
Hell yes. So. I want to see what she says about this sold sign thing.
Oh, yeah. She'll have some opinions on some things. So good. Next week,
she's
please
awesome.
Listen for Stacey Berry as well.
Yeah. I'm Kyle Morris with Morris Property Group and FC Tucker. My number is 317-649-5122.
And I'm Shelly Walters with the Shelly Walters Realtor Group FC Tucker, 317-201-2601. Thanks. See you next week.
Pacers in 7.